Tobe Hanson. Tobe is a nickname for Torbjörn, which is a hard name to pronounce in English. But I came to this country about 35 years ago, and my background is in Chinese medicine, Eastern philosophy. I study acupuncture, I study applied kinesiology, and I've been spent about 35 years practicing trigger point therapy, acupressure, and constantly looking for a better way of helping people get free of pain, suffering. And so, it's a different form of therapy. It's a very, very quick result. You basically read the person. Anyone that comes in with pain, whether it's physical pain or mental, emotional pain, has something that is bothering them. There is something that they're not at peace with, either their body or their mind. So when a person comes in with physical pain, it's an accumulation of tension in this area. And my job is to find where is the center of that tension, because it's not always located where the person feels the pain. Once I located where this tension is, then my second job is trying to figure out what caused it, so that I could actually educate the person, so that they could either remove this tension from their life or find a way to see it in a different perspective, or find a way to eliminate it, so that the ongoing tension or stress in their life that's causing the pain can actually be eliminated. And that's really the key. So,
where do you think this information comes from? Like, because I know in our session you were just getting downloads, or just, where is it coming from? Your mind? Is it coming from spirit?
Well, I think ultimately it's coming from God, and that's maybe a loaded word because people have different idea of God, but God could be a higher spirit, higher consciousness. I think there's an old Chinese proverb that says that when the master sees the patient the first time, they're already communicating. And there is two energies that are coming together. One is seeking help and healing, and the other one is seeking to help. When you are completely in tune with the patient, then you're gathering information. Some of them are very obvious and scientific. I could see on your posture if one shoulder is higher, for example, and I could very easily understand which muscles are contracted to cause that. If you also now have pain in the neck or a headache, and that's a very obvious physical symptom. I could also see if you have a problem of turning your head or moving your arm or moving your back in a certain position. I could very easily then from that distract exactly which muscles are too short contracted or which muscles are not strong enough. So I could go both by posture, range of motion, and then I use muscle testing to find out if a muscle is strong or if it's weak or if it's pulling too much. So with this information of posture, range of motion, and muscle testing, I'm able to determine where there's tension in the body. Then I apply the acupuncture system. So in the acupuncture system, there is 12 meridians. Those meridians are pathways along the body. They're not seen, they're not physical in nature. And along those pathways are reflex points. They're called acupuncture points. There are listed points that have a set anatomical location, and ashi points, which is a point where there's a buildup of tension. It's not a listed point. Basically in Chinese mean ouch, that's the spot. So along those pathways are those reflex points. Those reflex points are actually overloaded and short circuit from a form of stress. Now when we think stress, it could be all kinds of stress. Most people coming in with pain have the idea that they have back pain because, for example, they had an old car accident, they play football in high school, or they're sitting too long in their car and it's the commute that's killing me, or something like that. But it's not always the sitting in the car that kills you. Very often it's your state of mind when you're sitting in the car that kills you. If you're frustrated, if you're irritated, if it's taking too long, if you're doing something you don't want to do, that state of mind is equally stressful as the prolonged sitting. So you have to take into consideration the physical stress from excessive use or overuse or abuse, trauma. Then you have nutritional stress, which you're an expert to, and environmental stress, when there is food that is not good or poor quality, or supplements or additives or chemicals in the environment that also is affecting us. Then we have environmentals such as pollen, bacteria, viruses. We have the climate, if it's too hot, too cold, too windy, too dry. All of those things affect us. And then perhaps the biggest of all, I think, is the mental and emotional stress factors, which is the story that is in our head, how we perceive things. It's really never what happened that makes us upset. It's how we interpret what happened that makes us upset. It's what we tell ourselves about it. And so the mental and emotional aspect is huge, because it's the belief systems we have. The belief systems we have is what makes us act and do certain things. So stress is either real or perceived. It doesn't matter if it's perceived, because if you perceive it as real, you still think it's real. So the key is therefore to kind of find what kind of stress caused this build-up of tension. How can I manually release the tension with my hands on the trigger points and reflex points to get immediate relief, and at the same time educate the patient on what caused this and what they can do to not have it happen again, basically change their way. So all of this is built or based on ancient Chinese medicine, and I really believe that the masters 5,000 years ago, they really know what they're doing. And unfortunately for this time, acupuncture have lost a lot of that truly holistic aspect. Because in the old days, the master could find one point and treat one point. And nowadays, acupuncture has become, like many other treatments, symptomatic, where, for example, treat those points for a headache, treat those points for sciatica, which is preset points, which is not specific for that individual, and not taking into consideration what caused the problem, and also not educating them what's causing the tension. For example, if someone comes to me in pain and I relieve the pain, but I don't tell them what caused the pain, all they're going to do is go out and do the same things again and come back. And if that happened, I could have a practice where people come back every week for the rest of their lives. I wouldn't need many patients before my practice was full. But I tried to pride myself on having them not needing to come back, by basically, instead of giving them fish, teaching them how to fish. Now they might come back for another issue, but ideally you want to teach them what was the cause of this injury. What can you learn from this injury? What do you need to do to adjust, to be at peace with your circumstances and the environment, so that you're not tense about this, so your body could heal. So it's very simple. In ancient Chinese medicine, the principle is that there's only one remedy, or there's only one disease and one injury. The name of that disease or that injury is stagnation. And there's only one remedy. And the name of the remedy is circulation. And the idea, if the circulation is restored, the body has the ability to heal itself. It is when the circulation is blocked, whether it's in your thought patterns or in your bodily fluids, in your lymph, in your muscles, wherever that tension is, that is what then cause a blockage, which prevent the body from being able to heal itself.
You mentioned in the very beginning of this answer, you mentioned muscle testing.
Yes.
I have probably been muscle tested by like 15 different people, and I never felt like there was any validity to it. But after seeing you, of course, now I know it is real. Mm-hmm. What is muscle testing? What's the theory behind it, and how does it work?
Well, it started with a person named George Goodhart. He's a chiropractor, and he developed applied kinesiology. He started using muscle testing by accident. He stumbled on it. He were using muscle testing the same way physical therapists were using muscle testing, which is a way to assess if a muscle is strong or weak, so you know where there's a problem in the body. But then by accident, he started testing muscles and at the same time touching certain reflex points. And when doing that, he got different result in the muscle. The muscle that tested weak certainly tested strong. So he found out by accident, by rubbing certain reflex points or holding certain points, it was like reconnecting a circuit. A muscle that was weak tested strong. Now that then developed into chiropractors were using muscle testing to determine which vertebra to adjust. Chiropractor nutritionists were using muscle testing to determine which supplement to use. Dentist was using muscle testing to determine which teeth or fillings to remove or which teeth to correct in some kind of a jaw correction with a TMJ problem or something. So this evolved into even deeper asking people how they responded to certain thoughts and then at the same time testing their muscle. Now, muscle testing is great, but at the same time, it's also very sensitive because if I test you on how you respond to something, I introduce something, like for example, if you turn your head to this side and lean back, is this arm going weak? If it does, it means that the body didn't like that. Now that's a pretty obvious thing because if there's a nerve being pinched there, it hurts and you lose strength in your arm and it's very obvious. If at the same time I'm asking you to think about something that was stressful and I test you and the arm goes weak, I'm bringing in much more complicated issues. And I don't know if your thoughts are changing, so I don't know exactly what I'm testing. So muscle testing is great, but at the same time it could also be misused. And it is very important that the person that's using muscle testing comes from a neutral perspective and not try to prove a point. Because if I use muscle testing to show you that you need this supplement and I'm selling it, then I'm not coming from a neutral point. And so therefore muscle testing is very subtle, but when I test you, I don't really know exactly what I'm testing because in your mind, different thoughts pops in and out and I don't know exactly what you're thinking about in that split second. So there are so many different variables. So muscle testing is just a tool to try to find where in the body there is tension and also how the person responds to different thoughts or different body movements or to different stimuli. And at the same time, I believe muscle testing is a way for you to trust your own intuition. When you are completely present with your client, when you pay full attention to them, when your desire is to help them and heal them, then information comes to you. And muscle testing sometimes could just be a little tool that you lean on, but maybe don't even need.
Do you feel like you have to consciously put yourself aside if there are days that you come to work and you're not clear or things come up in your head of a memory or something you have to do? How do you stay totally clear and devoted to a client?
Well, it's like anything anyone do. To me, it's the highest state of being when you are completely present. You could be seeing a sunset on the beach or climbing Yosemite and just be at awe. And in that moment, nothing exists except for that moment. You could be having your first child in your hands and see that moment. You could make love to your significant other in that moment. You're completely lost in that moment. And you could experience helping someone, playing a game, playing an instrument, doing an art, being in this state, in this zone, when time ceases to exist, then you do forget about self. It's not about self, it's not about time. And to me, that is a state when you also operate on your highest and when you're at peace. That state, being in the zone, finding that peace, is what all people strive for. They might not realize it. whatever you do, you want to find that. Life is not a destination, it's a journey. It's that step you take right now. How can you have peace, joy in this step? And so when I work on patients, which is interesting, and through my tribulations in my life, I think all the suffering and problems I had, I find a refuge in treating others. So at that point, I forgot about myself and my problems, and as I focused on them and helped them, it healed me. And so the true healing then comes in being completely present, forgetting about yourself. And I have found in my life, as the more you grow, you try to get to the state so you're at peace and present more and more and more. And I haven't met anyone who is that way 100% of the time, that never get rocked or stressed about anything, even though I do believe those people exist. I have found that I have gotten more and more and more to that state. And when I'm working with patients, I'm probably, I believe, at 90% in that state, which means most of the time. Which means to me, work is not work. It is a purpose, it's a joy, it's peace. And at few occasions, when you lose that peace, it could feel like effort, but otherwise it's actually a state when time doesn't exist, and when you are able to lock into that patient. That's also when you're able to communicate with their subconscious, when you're able to read their mind, when you're able to understand their suffering. And of course, this is sometimes almost shocking to the patient, because it could be like, I knew them, but I never knew them. And they're kind of a little bit kind of shocked in the beginning. But it's really this information, at the same time as you're releasing the tension, that's helping the healing take place. Because the person comes without faith, comes in distress, and maybe lost trust, maybe don't believe they could get better anymore. And healing is about starting to believe again. So once you find a really tense spot, and you start talking about them without knowing them, and at the same time they could feel this intense pain and this tension when you release it physically, and then they feel how the tension goes away completely. Now they feel, oh, it went away. And how could he know this stuff about me? And then you release another one and another one. And with each one, you build up a momentum of hope that becomes trust, that becomes faith, and where they start believing I could heal. And I think that's the biggest thing of all, because once someone believes that they're healed, then they're healed. And so nothing heals more than love, peace, and faith. And so how do you get someone to start believing? Sometimes that happens really fast and easy, and sometimes that could be hard. But I think that's the most important thing. The moment someone starts believing, that's when they start healing.
Wow. Talking about hard cases, I think I'm probably not the easiest case. But the first session we had was exactly what you said, where you created an opening for the first time in 13, 14 months. Yeah. I didn't have pain. I was able to sit, and you snipered in. You were just like, you don't have self, you don't think you're worth anything. Yeah. You don't think you've accomplished anything. Like, what do you fear? And I had this massive, I have worked on this massive fear of failure and fear of not being good enough, fear of not accomplishing my mission, right? All of these things that you kind of sniped into our first session without having known me. What is that? Do you feel that you're just getting this feedback from the body, from spirit? All of this stuff comes in, and you're just speaking from.
And which is interesting. I didn't know you, but since then I've heard of you and I've seen what you've accomplished, and all the people that follow you is going to probably say, "What? He failed? He hasn't accomplished anything? What about me then?" I'm not, But it's all the perception. Because you could do great things, but if you yourself feel that you didn't accomplish anything, then it's like you haven't really, in your heart, accomplished or taken it to heart. And so the sad thing is, with all the work you did, you have helped so many people, you have done so many things, you have taken something from nothing and created this, but yet in your own heart you had doubt on whether you were doing anything. And so how do I know this? This depends on when I go through the posture, the range of motion, when I find which acupuncture meridians is out, when I find where the tension is, because each meridian and each point is related to certain personality traits. And then I do something that I call fishing. I start asking a question. And then another question. And when you bite, then I ask more question that is related to that question. And then suddenly I have a history, not only where your pain is, a couple of questions, and now I'm building a case here of a personality trait. And now I could explain that, you have accomplished so much, you're doing so much, but in your own mind you feel that it was not good. You should have done more, you should have done it sooner. And because of this feeling of not accomplishing something, you have this fear of running out of time, or you can't rest and you can't be still because you haven't accomplished anything. Much like a farmer who works all year and doesn't get a harvest, he can't rest in the winter because he's fearful of his survival and how is he going to survive the long winter. And so the person that then work and work and work and feel in their own heart that didn't accomplish anything is then feeling this fear of running out of time, and that becomes very scary. And the whole concept then, of course, of time is an illusion anyway. So you get caught up in all those illusions of time, and I'm not good enough, and there's something wrong with me, and my back is messed up. All of those is just thoughts, because in spirit you're whole already. You just don't know it. But in your mind you're messed up. And here you're doing all this to help people, and your mind is still having those messed up thoughts, And because of that you feel like you're running out of time, and there's danger, and and I don't remember all the details we had in your case, but this combination of not being good enough and being in fear caused an ongoing tension. And then your back pain wasn't going away, and then you start thinking maybe my back never gets better. And then, of course, since what caused this is tension, you could imagine what happened to the tension in the muscles when you keep thinking the thought that I'm never going to get better, and I'm not good enough, and I'm running out of time. Of course, those muscles just tighten up more, which is literally like pouring gasoline on the fire. You're just making it worse.
Yeah. My last question I want to ask you is, that first session, it was extremely memorable for me, and I'm sure you've done this with hundreds or thousands of people. I know all these people that are behind us on the wall you've worked with, right? Nate Diaz. So you work with thousands of people from all around the world. I don't expect you to remember the exact details, but I was laying on my back, and my legs were on one side and my upper body was on the other side, and I was like fighting you. I was like, what are you doing? And you were like, you have to trust me. I was like, you're killing me. Like, you're literally going to kill me is what I thought, or you're going to rip my back in half.
Yeah. And
you were like, you just have to trust me. And you did this thing where you were pushing me apart, basically, opening my muscles. And after 13 months of not being able to sit, I was able to sit again. What is that move, and what is it? Can you explain those muscles?
Well, but a lot of things was, you were so conditioned to think there's something wrong with me, I can't do this, it's going to kill me. I find muscles and points that were extremely painful. I worked on those points, I released those points, and the first point I probably hit, you probably thought, what are you doing? You're killing me. Yeah. And I just said, breathe. Breathe. And you said, what do you mean breathe? I'm breathing. And then finally I coached you to start breathing deep into your diaphragm. And when you did that, you calmed down, you stopped stimulating stress hormones, the muscles were getting oxygen. And as the muscle relaxed, and you felt it relax, then I went to the next muscle. And then, of course, the end then when I took you in a position which you were fearful of going to, I basically told you there's nothing wrong with you. It's just tight muscles. Breathe. I've released all those points already. Haven't you seen that? Let me release this one. And then finally, when you stop fighting me and you surrendered and you start breathing and the muscles relaxed, there was no pain anymore. And so it's kind of almost like you have to exaggerate the pain first, and it takes, 30 seconds, a minute, and then it goes away, for you to realize how tense you are, and for you to start breathing, and then with the mechanical pressure of me pushing on the points, and it's relaxing, and you breathing, it's like your whole mind starts thinking, oh, maybe it's not that bad. Oh, feels a little bit better. Maybe I can get better. And it's starting this rolling or this momentum of thinking from, I'm messed up, no one could help me, to, oh, that felt better. How could that happen? Oh, that felt better. How could that happen? Oh, maybe I can get better, you know? And then, like you said, even after the first time you left and you felt better, but then some pain started coming back. We worked on you a little bit more, and now you're like an expert on this whole thing with the breathing and also connecting with your mind, and even stop when you feel pain. Oh, am I breathing? No. Am I beating myself up again? No. Yeah, I am. Okay. You know, it's the constant, every time pain is not your enemy, it's your teacher. It's trying to teach you something. Once you figure out what it's teaching you, what the silver lining is, once you realize all the things that are not true, once you start breathing, then things get better. Most injuries and sicknesses and diseases gets worse because people are freaking out and think that it's really bad, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. But the more they freak out, the more they tense up, the more scared they get, the more it tense up.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Well, best is probably my website, tobehanson.com. That's Tobe with an E and Hanson with an O. That's probably the best way. That's
Okay. And you're in Pleasanton, California.
Pleasanton, California. Yeah.
Okay. I'll post a link to in the info description. Thank you so much, Tobe. This was truly
Thank
amazing.
you.